My mother-in-law, Eleanor, held out a single, perfectly arranged oyster on a silver spoon. "Just for you, Alex. A new amuse-bouche I'm trying out. My special recipe." Her smile was too bright, her eyes didn't quite meet mine. "I'm Alex Miller, 33, chef and owner of the Saffron Table. My restaurant was my life before Chloe. Now it's part of our life." Eleanor handed me the spoon. Chloe, my wife, reached for one from the tray. Eleanor quickly pulled back. "No, darling, these are very rich. Alex has a stronger stomach." Something in her voice, the way Richard, my father-in-law, watched from his armchair, made my skin prickle. "Looks incredible, Eleanor," I said. As I raised it, I pretended to notice a piece of lint on my jacket, a subtle shift of my hand. The oyster slipped, not into my mouth, but onto the pristine white Persian rug at her feet. "Oh, clumsy me," I said. Eleanor's smile froze. Richard grunted. Chloe rushed for a napkin. "I'm so sorry, Eleanor." Later that night, the name's Julian Mercer, 32 years old, independent photographer from Asheville. Wait, that was the example. My name is Alex Miller. And what happened next wasn't about a photographer. It was about me, my kitchen, and my wife. Chloe and I met 3 years ago. She'd come into the Saffron Table with friends. I was in the weeds, expediting, but I saw her. Later, she sent a note back to the kitchen complimenting a specific dish, a nuance most people missed. We talked for hours that first night. She got it, the passion, the brutal hours, the art of it. Her parents, Eleanor and Richard Vance, were a different menu. Richard was a big shot in investment management. Success to him was a stock portfolio, not a perfectly seared scallop. Eleanor, a woman who probably ironed her bank statements, viewed my profession as slightly above plumbing, but less reliable. "How's the little food business, Alex?" Richard would ask at the mandatory Sunday dinners at their sterile mansion. Eleanor would chime in about how brave Chloe was to marry someone in such a volatile industry. They'd wanted her to marry Daniel Stratton, a lawyer whose family crest probably featured a dollar sign. For 2 years, I'd played the game, brought vintage wines, talked about positive reviews, endured the condescension. Chloe would squeeze my hand, her eyes apologizing for them. I never complained to her. They were her parents. That oyster. The slight metallic scent I caught just before dropping it, a scent no oyster should have. The way Eleanor's eyes, for a split second, flashed with something ugly. It wasn't just disapproval anymore. This felt different. Darker. The next day, I meticulously cleaned the tiny residue from the rug fibers when no one was looking, sealing it in a sample bag. I told Chloe I wasn't feeling well, a lingering stomach bug. She was concerned, motherly. I called Dr. Ben Carter, a forensic toxicologist I knew through a mutual acquaintance. "Hypothetical question, Ben," I said. "What could make an oyster unappetizing in a very specific way?" I met him, gave him the sample. A few days later, Ben called. "Alex, this wasn't just an off oyster. Significant traces of colchicine. Not enough to kill, probably, but enough to cause severe gastrointestinal distress." Nasty stuff. "Where'd you get this?" "Family dinner," I said, and hung up before he could ask more. Colchicine, used for gout, but in larger doses a poison. My blood ran cold. I didn't tell Chloe. Not yet. I needed more than a lab report. I needed to understand why. Over the next few weeks I dug. Eleanor had a cousin with severe gout, easy access. Then, a name from Chloe's past surfaced in my mind, Leo Maxwell, an artist she'd dated before me. Her parents had despised him. One evening, I found an old email account of Chloe's she'd forgotten about. In it, frantic emails between her and Leo. Accusations, misunderstandings. Leo swearing he hadn't spread those rumors about her, hadn't missed their anniversary dinner because he forgot. Chloe, heartbroken, believing what her mother had, gently, suggested. It was a pattern. The doubt Eleanor and Richard had been seeding in Chloe about me, about my commitment, my ability to provide, suddenly looked less like parental concern and more like a strategy. Chloe had been more withdrawn lately. Her parents had been calling her more, just to check in. Then Sophia Hayes called me. She used to be Richard's executive assistant, let go a year ago under a cloud of NDAs. "Mr. Miller," she said, her voice low. "I might have something you need to see. About the Vances. About how they operate." We met in a noisy coffee shop. Sophia slid a slim USB drive across the table. Richard had a habit of keeping meticulous, sometimes unethical records, audio notes, copies of correspondence he shouldn't have kept. I made my own copies before I left. Leverage, I thought. Now I think it's justice. I went back to my office above the restaurant. The USB contained audio files. Richard and Eleanor, voices cold and clear. "He's not right for her, Richard. This chef, it's a face." Eleanor's voice. "Phases can last too long, Eleanor. Remember Leo? We nipped that in the bud." A few well-placed words, Richard's calm reply. Another file, Eleanor agitated. "That dinner was a disaster. He didn't even eat the oyster. Richard, amateur. Eleanor, you should have put it in his wine. More direct. But don't worry. There are other ways. Sooner or later, Chloe will see he's not a provider. Not one of us. We just need to keep applying pressure. Make her doubt? Another? The Saffron Table got another star. That just makes him more arrogant. We need to focus Chloe on the downsides. The insecurity. The long hours he's not with her. My hands were shaking. It wasn't just dislike. It was a campaign to isolate Chloe, to break us up, just like they'd broken her and Leo. They weren't just meddling. They were trying to destroy my marriage, my life with Chloe. And the oyster, that was escalation. I called Chloe. Can you come to the office? There's something I need to show you. She arrived, her face etched with worry from my tone. I didn't preface it. I just played the recordings. Her hand flew to her mouth. The color drained from her face. She listened to her parents plotting, disparaging me, talking about manipulating her. Tears streamed down her cheeks. When it was over, she was silent for a long time. They did this to Leo, she finally whispered. I nodded, showing her the old emails I'd found. And the oyster. Lab report confirmed colchicine. She buried her face in her hands, then looked up at me, her eyes blazing. My parents, how could they? They want control, Chloe, and they'll do anything to keep it. What do we do? She asked, her voice stronger now. We show them the game is over. That Sunday, we went to the Vance mansion. Chloe's brother, Mark, was there with his wife, Linda. Mark, a younger version of Richard, always too eager to please his parents. We need to talk, Chloe said, her voice devoid of its usual warmth. Eleanor and Richard exchanged a look. About what, darling? Eleanor asked. About this, I said, and plugged the USB into their entertainment system. I played the recordings, the most damning ones. Eleanor gasped. Richard's face turned to stone. Mark looked bewildered, then horrified as he listened. Linda's eyes widened. This is fake! You doctored this, Alex? Eleanor shrieked when the audio ended. Is it, Mom? Chloe asked quietly. Is it fake that you tried to poison my husband? That you systematically destroyed my relationship with Leo? That you've been trying to sabotage my marriage since day one? Richard stood up. This is an outrage! How dare you accuse us? We're not accusing, Dad. Mark cut in, his voice shaking. We heard it. That was your voice. Mom's voice. All these years, all the things you said about my friends you didn't like. He looked ill. We did it for your own good? Eleanor cried. To protect you from unsuitable people. Unsuitable? I said. Or just people you couldn't control. Chloe stepped forward. It stops now. No more interference. No more manipulation. Alex is my husband. This is my life. You will respect that or you will not be part of it. Her voice didn't waver. Richard stared at her, then at me. I could see the calculations in his eyes. The potential scandal. The loss of control. I have copies of everything, I said calmly. The audio, the lab report, Sophia Hayes' sworn statement. It stays private, for Chloe's sake. Unless you give me a reason to make it public. The air crackled. Eleanor was weeping, but they weren't tears of remorse. Richard's jaw was tight. Then Chloe dropped the final bomb. And one more thing. I'm pregnant. The shock on their faces was almost comical. Eleanor's wailing stopped mid-sob. Richard just stared. Baby, Eleanor finally managed, a strange mix of emotions in her voice. Your grandchild, Chloe said. A grandchild who will be raised without your guidance, unless you change. Drastically. 6 months passed. A cold war. Polite, infrequent calls. Boundaries were drawn and for the first time, respected. Eleanor and Richard sent extravagant baby gifts. No strings attached. Surprisingly, we had a son, named him Samuel. One evening, Richard called me. Alex, I'd like to meet. Just us? We met at his club. He poured 2 expensive brandies. Your restaurant is doing remarkably well, he said. No condescension this time. Does all right, I replied. I have a proposal. I'm part of a consortium investing in a new luxury hotel group. They need a visionary for their culinary operations. Executive chef across the portfolio. Substantial salary. Creative control mostly. He smiled, a thin, unreadable expression. An olive branch, perhaps, a way for you to provide for Chloe and Samuel on a different scale. It was the same tactic, control dressed as opportunity. Thank you, Richard. But no, I said. The saffron table is my scale, and Chloe and Samuel have everything they need. His eyes hardened. Don't be a fool. This is a real opportunity. My life is real, Richard. My work is real. My family is real. You can't buy them, and you can't control them. I think you're finally starting to understand that. I left him sitting there with his brandy. A few weeks later, a thick manila envelope arrived. Legal documents. Richard had set up a substantial, irrevocable trust fund for Samuel. No conditions, no expectations. It wasn't an apology. It was an admission of sorts. A recognition of the new lines drawn. That Christmas, Eleanor sent a small, handwritten card with a check. For Samuel. And perhaps, Alex, you could cater our New Year's Eve charity gala. Your usual rates, of course. People are raving about your food. I looked at Chloe. She smiled. Your call, chef. I thought about it. The old Alex would have refused out of spite. The new Alex, the one who'd faced them down and won, saw it differently. It's good business, I said. The gala was at their mansion. The saffron table team was flawless. Eleanor was polite. Richard watched me work. A strange look on his face. Respect, maybe. At the end of the night, he came over to the temporary kitchen we'd set up. Exceptional Alex. Truly. Thank you, Richard. He hesitated. Chloe, she seems happy. She is, I said. We looked at each other. No apologies, no confessions, just an understanding. They had lost. We had won, not by fighting them on their terms with their weapons of manipulation and malice, but by standing firm, armed with truth, and protecting what mattered. My restaurant flourished. My son grew. My wife Chloe stood beside me, strong and happy. And that, I realized, was the only validation I'd ever needed. Their respect, when it finally, grudgingly came, was just an irrelevant seasoning on an already perfect dish.